you are an SME or a large company, transforming your business from linear to circular does not come overnight, unfortunately. Beaulieu International Group defined a clear vision that they want to be zero impact by 2030, a very ambitious goal. To achieve this, Beaulieu International Group defined 3 action areas, including circular economy, which has been a topic of our podcast very often. But we will talk today about polypropylene, plastics, an important raw material at Beaulieu, and one route without the circular economy agenda to go from linear to circular plastics, either by using renewable materials or by recycling. Very powerful mission. But once defined, how and where do you start? In a company with over 4,900 people employed worldwide, only one person was assigned to take the lead to set up this ambitious new project. And 1 year in this role, we are sure that he has a lot of interesting insights to share with us today. We're very happy to welcome you here to the studio, Pieter Vanoosthuyse, Business Development Manager for Recycled Polypropylene at Beaulieu International Group. Pieter, welcome in the studio.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Before we dive into plastics, the topic of today, Pieter, can you maybe tell me or our listeners who you are and what drives you?
Sure. So my name is Pieter Vanoosthuyse. I'm 33 years old. I'm happily married and proud father of a little 1-year-old daughter, Renee.
Congrats.
Thank you. So it's quite a happy family, so to say. And what I value a lot in life, basically, is having positive impact, both on the professional and on the private level, next to friends and family, and having a good health. So mens sana in corpore sano a bit. So yeah, I'm from professionally. My background is in mechanical engineering, both as an industrial engineer, as a civil engineer, and have some background in economics. So before starting my career at Beaulieu International Group.
Okay, and as a father as well,
Yeah.
career as a father. So Beaulieu International Group is one of, I think, the biggest textile companies in Belgium, active in a lot of different markets. Can you maybe introduce what Beaulieu does and where the products can be found?
Yeah, so Beaulieu International Group, B.I.G abbreviated, is a world player in the market. We have production facilities, 29 to be more exactly, going from the Scandics area, so Norway, up to, let's say, Spain, but also in Australia, in China, Shandong Weihai area, to USA and to Canada. So each of those 29 players, each of those 29 sites has their own products, has their own markets. And as one group, Beaulieu International Group is mainly focusing on raw materials, so the upstream part, on the intermediates, being fibers, yarns, technical textiles, corrugated sheets, and then on the end products, so the flooring solutions, where we go from soft flooring, being, for example, carpets, event carpets, residential, domestic, to also hard flooring applications, where we see then laminates, parquet, vinyls, and others.
Okay.
So 5,000 employees globally, as you mentioned earlier, 29 production sites. And the polymers that we're using is polypropylene as a major polymer. Then PVC comes, wood, and then some polyester, some polyamide, and some PLA and polyethylenes.
Good. So a very down-to-earth group, I would say. So the topic today is really to make the transition from linear to circular, and how do you start with that? I can imagine that not everyone knows how plastics are used in textiles today. Maybe some people don't realize that they use plastics in textiles, or what polypropylene, PP, is. Can you maybe give us some background on this without being too technical about it?
Basically, you have two kinds of products. You have the natural origin fibers and synthetic fibers. So the polypropylene is a synthetic, where you start from polypropylene as a granule. It's a small pellet size, and that small pellet is getting melted in order to extrude then fibers or yarns or other polymers. And so polypropylene is one of the polymers, but the alternatives are, for example, polyester or polyamide. Within our company, most focus is on polypropylene.
Okay, good. So plastics it is. So I introduced in the intro, you started 1 year ago in a new role of business development manager for recycled polypropylene. Why was this defined as an important pillar in the sustainability vision of Beaulieu? Why is there a need, very basic question, but why is there a need for making plastic circular?
Clear question. So I have some background within the company. I've been working for the company for nearly 9 years now. But last year I got the opportunity to shift to business development in polypropylene. That's about also the time where our sustainability strategy became public. So our purpose as a company is to shape sustainable living together. So, and one of those key aspects, as you already mentioned, next to reducing our direct impact, scope 1 and scope 2, from our own emissions, so energy savings, water reduction, and also waste reduction, which we are implementing in each of the sites. We also want to structurally advance in the circular economy part, where we want to implement sustainable materials, both to explore what's possible on the renewable side and on the recycled side. So if we want to advance structurally there, then we need to make sure the biggest impact, if we take a full life cycle, a full LCA, biggest impact is coming either from the upstream, so from the origin of the materials, or for the downstream, so the end of life treatment that you're applying. Yeah. So if you want to shift and have true action, that's the right area to be in.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that, being a spinner myself. You started in this role alone. That's an amazing, ambitious mission. What we're very curious about is, how did you get started? Do you remember how your first week was, or your first months looked like? What did you do then?
I see it a bit as an entrepreneurship within the company. To have a sustainable strategy.
Entrepreneurship. We used this term before. I really like it. Yeah.
Exactly. But to say I'm alone, I think that's a bit of a free statement. We have 5,000 employees, of which everybody is contributing in their specific part of the circular economy. But how did we get started on that challenge is first to have a good view on what are the processes that we are having today within all of our production sites, what are the polymers that we're using, who are the people within our companies, to really get a good view on our company from the inside. And next to the inside, so what we did is set up some quality metrics to have a good status and a picture, where are we today, and where do we want to go to in the next years. So that's also related to our Ambition 2030, to have a strategic plan for those actions. So then we set up, once the metrics came in, data came in, we used a Pareto approach, where you have the biggest impact going to the smaller ones in order to tackle from first time right the right approach. And last but not least, I would say, next to having the inside view and the inside metrics, so also having an outside-in perspective on a company is crucial if you're looking into circular economy, because Beaulieu International Group, as mentioned earlier, we're in the circular value chain. We're very strong at raw materials, component manufacturing and product assembly, but there's a lot of actors remaining in that value chain in order to have a full circular system.
So the ecosystem approach is very important to get insights in that, right? There is where Ellie.Connect definitely can help as well. So the focus is really on finding alternatives to linear plastics, both in renewable materials as in recycling. If we first focus on the recycling part, there's already a lot of technologies making plastic recycling happen, both in thermoplastic recycling as well in chemical and mechanical recycling. What is really preventing the large-scale adaptation of those technologies?
I think that there's a couple of things. One of the thing is, if you want to set up a true circular system, you need to have a clear view on which feedstocks are where, at what moment, and to have clear traceability. You also need to have the right processes in place to upgrade the feedstock that you have, because we need to stop thinking of waste as is today, but start thinking as it as a circular resource. But in order to do that, you need to have high quality recycling. You need to have the volumes there, so access to feedstock is crucial, and the right collection schemes up and running. So those are, I think, key indicators that we would like to assist and help in there to contribute to that circular economy part.
Okay, that's interesting, because it's also, when we talk to other parties in textile to textile recycling, those are in fact as well the challenges that were put on the table. So definitely something to do there. We read in an interview that your vision for recycling is not to focus on high volume, on bulk, but rather on high quality. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure, definitely. What we see is that different pledges, for example, have been made in order to recycle 10 million tons of, for example, plastics. But what's crucial is not only the volume, because volume, we can have volume, there's access to feedstock, but it's crucial to have the right quality. If you're making thin as hair fibers, which have, let's say, a diameter of 25 microns, that's the size of a white blood cell, filtration quality needs to be splendid. So you need very high quality recyclates to work in textile applications and extrusion processes. So it's crucial to have not only the volume but also the right quality available. So therefore we need to develop the right technologies, I believe, both on the mechanical and on the advanced recycling, so chemical recycling tracks.
Okay. Interesting perspective. Okay, we talked about recycling, but what about alternative renewable materials? Where do you stand today with that?
In terms of renewables, I think the technology readiness level is still a bit smaller. The TRL is a bit smaller, but we have, apart from polypropylene, some other initiatives where we are exploring, let's say, bio-based PLA materials, but also bio-based polyamide, and we are also looking into bio-based polypropylene, so bio-renewable on the one hand, or biocircular. The biocircular is then coming from, let's say, UCOs, which are used cooking oils, which are then being cracked in order to have a polymer, so from a biological origin based materials. Okay,
and what about a bio-PLA? What is then the basis of the material? It's coming from nature directly then?
Yeah, the PLAs are bio-based directly, nature materials coming. So there's a couple of different products, different applications where we are exploring what's possible there.
Okay, and where do you see the most potential in the long run? By focusing on recycling or more on renewable materials, or should it be a combination? What is your point of view there?
In my opinion, it's not a question of or this or that. It really depends on what do you need. If you want to have a really low carbon solution, as low as possible, well, the bio-origin shows in the LCAs that they're the lowest carbon footprint as possible. So low carbon, we're looking at biocircular or bio-based. If we want to end plastic pollution and we want to avoid incineration and litter of plastics, then we need to emphasize the circular value chains. So to end plastics and plastic pollution, we need to have the circular resources.
Okay. And while exploring the different options, does it really remain for you in a research phase, or are you already increasing production, trying out new raw materials, new concepts?
Well, that's a good question, because we're looking on different fronts in the circular value chain. If we take a look at, let's say, the raw materials in, what we typically tend to do is to do on an R&D perspective on a pilot scale, so do pilot testing, small lab scale testing, then upscaling to a small production unit, and then going operational. As of today, we already have products with mechanical recycled content, majority in, let's say, corrugated plastics, but also in woven applications. But we're also looking what's possible in yarns and fibers for mechanical. in terms of, let's say, advanced recycled, there we're working on how to get the feedstock to integrate it. And if we take a look at the end of life, there what we're typically try to do is to set up some kind of schemes where we can make sure that the material at the end of life is recycled. I think one of the best examples there is the Rewind event carpet, where we make sure that all the material is recycled and it doesn't end up in incineration or litter or any other kind of, let's say, not keeping the material at its highest value throughout the entire value chain.
Okay, that's good. And what are the crucial elements for you to establish these type of circular products? Take that Rewind carpet example, for instance.
I think it's very crucial that we all understand the circular value chain. Because when I started at the challenge, mainly when we were developing products or we were manufacturing something, you have on the one hand a customer demand, on the other hand a supplier. But it's really important to understand in which circular value chain are you working. In the circular value chain, you basically have 8 actors. So raw materials, you have the component manufacturing, for example, the yarns or the product that you're making, the product assembly, then you have distribution, use phase, collection. After the collection, there's the pre-treatment and then the recycling. And if you want to develop something for a circular system, you have to speak to all actors in that chain and not only look just up front or just behind the core element where we're sitting in. So I think understanding that value chain is crucial.
So you have the part of understanding the value chain, but also reaching out and making the contacts. Was this something, these contacts, something that you already had when you started the project, or how did you gain access to the network, or how did you build this?
So the benefit was, as I was working already a couple of years within the company before, I had already a lot of network connections inside, and also from a supplier perspective, we had connections. But I think it's thanks to these kinds of forums, like the Ellie.Connect platform, but also sector federations, where we get to meet a lot of different actors in the value chain. It's through organizations and different initiatives that you get to meet those people who can truly add value in that circular value chain.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, because that's actually what we aim at with Ellie.Connect as well, for people looking for the right partners, to stimulate them to go further and to go faster. So you already talked about the key players that you need to make this kind of transformation a success. Let's talk about your 1-year birthday. What was the highlight of it? Do you have any specific memories that you would like to share? And are there any things that you would have done differently if you would have known it today?
Well, I think it's as we want to have positive impact. For me, it's crucial, and it's giving a lot of energy to see how we're advancing. So having, let's say, for a sourcing part from a waste stream, being able to upgrade it, to put it in a pilot, in a lab test, in a pilot scale, and then implementing it in a product and see that the product is commercially available. That's it's great to see how with, let's say, an entire team we can support these kind of strategic transformations, and it's the only way if we want to go towards 2030 or 2050 ambitions. So reaching those milestones is really it gives you a lot of motivation and a lot of energy to continue that track.
I hear that.
Yeah, it's a really fun job to do together with both all the players within our value chain, internally and externally.
Yeah.
The question was also, what would you have done differently? Well, I think it's very important to have a very, very good outside-in perspective of your company. So as earlier you can start with that perspective, the better. So what we did is mainly focused the first weeks and months on the internal perspective, but as soon as you can, also have a clear view on where am I in circular value chain and what's the outside-in perspective.
Okay. you talked about entrepreneurship. I really want to repeat that word because I love it. So, as an entrepreneur, how do you see your role evolving towards the future? Do you have any views or expectations for the next year or next years to come?
What we want to do is we want to structurally advance. So where it was more in last year was a bit of set the scene, have a view on what are we doing, setting up quality metrics in order to explore what's possible. We want to transition as well to have more implementation. So what we're going to do, and we'll come up also with a couple of initiatives next year, is having that implementation on a roll. So shifting from purely the exploration phase to also implementing it in the different business units.
That's the nice part for a startup or an entrepreneurial product, not only starting it up, but also scaling it up. So very good luck on that. We're almost at the end. Beaulieu is a very big company. You have an important role to play when it comes to inspiring others as well. Do you feel that the smaller companies, the SME companies in the textile ecosystem should also start working towards circular plastics? What is your view on that and your advice in how to take first steps?
Well, Beaulieu International Group is a very broad player, but each of the companies has their own products, their own markets. So what I think is, size is really not that important. Even the smaller the company is, the more agile you can be. So that's an interesting perspective. But basically, it all comes down to the same three things. We need to eliminate, we need to innovate, and we need to circulate. We need to eliminate the materials and the products that we do not need, or the designs that we do not need. We need to innovate our materials to last as long as possible, to be reused, recycled. And we need to circulate to make sure that we keep those valuable materials inside the circle.
Okay, very nice. So I think I would add collaborate for the smaller companies as well to create their own ecosystem, as Beaulieu is an ecosystem by itself. So as you're here on the podcast today, you have a stage. Is there anything you would like to ask Ellie or ask the ecosystem? I think now is your time to address them.
Well, as you mentioned, collaboration is key in this. So if there's anybody interested in certain circular value chain collaborations on the different aspects, from the raw material side to the intermediates or end products, or having the end of life collaborations, we're always open to have discussions there. So yeah, let's keep it open, because actually we are producing today the circular solutions of tomorrow. So we need to act now. That's basically what we want to do.
Important message. Act now, take small steps with big impact. Thank you, Pieter. That brings us to the end of this episode. Again, a very interesting one. With sharing your insights and experience as an entrepreneur in the wonderful world of circular plastics. Has this podcast triggered you to also set up your own action plan on circular plastics? We have good news for you. As of the beginning of this month, we have joined the Centexbel conference on circular economy in textiles and plastics. And we have actually gained some important insights there. What we did is we combined all the insights in this month's Ellie report, and you can download a preview for free. And I can tell you it's a very interesting one if you want to evolve in circular plastics as well. As usual, you can find the download on the podcast episodes blog post on our site, and definitely we will also add the link in the description. if you want to take your transition one step forward and fully make use of the Ellie.Connect community, as Pieter also mentioned, that is of very added value, please let us connect, inform, or inspire you during your journey. And definitely for this month, grab your special launch bonus of 50% off on a Level Up or a Believer, which are our two new ecosystem packages to get started today with the coupon code LAUNCHNOV. Register today on www.Ellie.Connect.com and experience the power of our own smaller and growing peer-to-peer network and ecosystem.